Gary, good morning. Best.
Speaking of Super Bowls, let's go to Gary Danielson here.
You've watched a lot of them on TV, right?
I attended the one in Detroit. There you go.
Would you rather lose one or never go to one?
I guess lose. Yeah, I mean, I was with that Cleveland team. I wasn't the starter, but that was a great football team. When we lost, Elway beat us twice, and I was happy about being in those games. We would have liked to have gone.
When you watch somebody like Elway, and I mentioned that Marcus Mariota had this unbelievable debut.
He did.
John Elway in his debut went 1 for 8 with an interception.
Right.
And I think he lined up over the guard at one point, ready to take the snap when he was facing the Steelers. The embryonic stages of quarterbacks, sometimes it's hard to tell how good somebody's going to be or how bad they're going to be. At what point would you be able to assess Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota of what kind of quarterback they're going to be the rest of their career?
Well, I have always kind of shied away a bit from spread quarterbacks. Not just any spread quarterback, but I've been always a little leery about drafting a spread quarterback real high that was basically in a running type option offense like Marcus was. And I think I said I wouldn't touch Marcus early because I thought the risk was too high. But watching him play, and I'm sure they tested him and all the stuff you have to do, I thought he was incredible yesterday.
Yeah.
I thought his release was, remind me of Aaron Rodgers type release. But what he brought to the game yesterday very subtly, do you know the phrase RPOs? It's a very big phrase in college football. The new style of game are run-pass options, where the offensive line is blocking a running play, and the receivers and the quarterbacks are running a pass play or run play, and you read not just for a quick hitch or a bubble screen, but you actually put the receivers downfield behind the linebackers, and the quarterback is reading the linebacker ready to hit him. Well, he hit 2 of those against Tampa in that game early, tremendously quick throws over the middle, and that tape's going to go all through the NFL. And you're going to see more and more of those plays where, for years, the NFL influenced college football, but now college football is having more influence on the NFL.
What did you see or not see from Jameis Winston?
I think Jameis is going to be fine. I really do. He's a very aggressive football player. He's a good leader, and I believe in the way he plays on the field. And his teammates seem to feel that he's all in as a quarterback. He's a good leader in the locker room. I will say this about Marcus that Jameis has to get better on. I went to Ron Jaworski's Maxwell Awards. Vernon and I were there for something different. And Marcus was there, invited by Jaws. And Marcus had done a pro testing day the day before. He flew all night. And he was at that banquet from cocktail party all the way to the end and signed autographs and stood there for a good 4 hours. And never once flinched, and I just couldn't get over it. And he was dead tired, and he said he was flying somewhere else to do another one the next day. He's just such a solid individual. I can see why a franchise is really going to love to have him as part of their franchise.
He's Gary Danielson from CBS. Gary called Georgia Vandy on Saturday. You get Auburn at LSU on Saturday. Boy, Auburn, that's a nice tune-up to face LSU, right? Last week?
Yeah, I mean, that if you ask me maybe what is the biggest, disappointment in college football right now, it might be Auburn. I mean, they were supposed to be a legitimate contender for the national championship. And, they got 2 wins. And I, from the Auburn standpoint, they feel they're going to improve. And remember, just a year ago, Ohio State started very slow, and they got much, much better as it went along, obviously. But, boy, the running game doesn't seem to be clicking right now. The defense gave up a ton of yards against, a team that they shouldn't. And Jeremy Johnson thrown 53 passes with 5 interceptions, and they've been ugly ones. So, this is going to be a tough one. They embarrassed LSU a year ago, and now they got to go in Baton Rouge. This is a big game for Auburn.
Michigan State beats Oregon.
Yeah.
What stood out in that game?
The way Michigan State can stop the run, and the way Oregon doesn't seem to be able to run the ball as well. I think Oregon rushed the ball for a 2.5 yard average in the football game, and quietly Mark D'Antonio, he's done really well in these big football games. They play their own style. They like to play line of scrimmage football. They always have a legitimate tailback. And they have a quarterback that's comfortable in big games. I think they're 5-1 in their last 6 games against top 10 teams. They're a legitimate threat to challenge Ohio State and get in the playoffs. I'm really impressed with their team, top to bottom, and the way they play.
Who had a better week though, Oregon or Auburn?
Oregon. Yeah, Oregon survived. Their quarterback's going to get better, and that game will not. I think that game's not going to solve. Keep them out of the playoffs. If they go on and win the rest of their games and win the Pac-12, Oregon could still be there. Auburn has a lot of question marks, it seems to me.
What about Notre Dame? You lose your running back, and now you lose your quarterback.
I didn't get the pleasure of doing your show last week, but I was on 8 or 10 of them. And my key for Notre Dame all year was keeping Malik Zaire healthy. All these college teams that use their quarterback as a semi-running back, it's very effective in college football. But you can't do that in the NFL. Even Mariota knows that. He's staying in the pocket. He's a threat. But you have to play running quarterback in the NFL the way Russell Wilson does it. You run what you have. And I call it the Franco Harris strategy of running.
Go out of bounds.
And go out of bounds. Yeah. And Franco was very smart. He says, I'll do it in the fourth quarter on a first down play. I'm not doing it in the first quarter of the first game. And I thought that was incredibly smart, and I think that's the way quarterbacks have to play it. But they don't play that way in college ball. It's interesting. College coaches rotate 2 running backs because they don't want them getting hit a lot. But they use their quarterback as a running back, and I think it's very, very dangerous, and Notre Dame's going to pay a big price for that.
Arkansas losing to Toledo. It's, if you're going to, you're going to send out a tweet and tweak the Ohio State Buckeyes, you better be able to beat any other team in the state of Ohio.
Agree. And, listen, I love Brett Bielema. I've known him since he was a defensive. Listen, I think I've known him since Iowa, and I was a big pusher of his ability when he was at Kansas State. I think he's a great head coach, but he's treading in the area of being like the Donald Trump of college football. He doesn't have a private jet. Donald earns it, but you got to back it up when you're a college football coach. I couldn't believe Arkansas threw the ball 53 times in a game that was a 16-12 game. That's incredible to me, and I'm shocked at the style that Dan Enos has brought to the game, and I think that has to be that's not the way Bielema visualizes his football team.
Aside from your game with Auburn at LSU, the other game you're keeping an eye on is what?
Ole Miss. There's no doubt. Ole Miss, Alabama. I'm sure there's big games out of our conference, but I think that game may be as big a game as there is. Ole Miss has put up plus 70 points. They've got Alabama at home. They're going to play up-tempo. Alabama doesn't like it. Well, at least Nick Saban, he doesn't really admit it, but it's not his favorite style of offense that he defends. Chad Kelly going in there, very explosive. Ole Miss has legitimate athletes on defense. That'll be a good football game.
What's your key for this week? Just so, I missed the key last week, Gary. Is there a key for this week? Well, you can't scold me for not having you on last week with the key.
You asked. I for the one time. Okay, here's my key. I'm really happy you're using my new picture. I've decided to stop coloring my hair. It was time.
Okay. Let me ask you about that. When do you make that decision to color your hair, and what role?
No, I stopped.
I know, but you stopped coloring your hair, but you made a decision to color your hair.
It wasn't working for me.
Okay,
anymore.
what role did your wife play? This is a big thing. Did you just do it on your own?
This was a team decision. I have to say. And in our household, I don't know if it's like that for you. Any tie goes to Mrs. Danielson. So it was 51-49 again, like most of them.
But see, wives will say, "I don't care." I think
it looks good. I like the new look. I'm going with it.
Well, you got to commit one way or another. So now you're all in with the natural look. So
I am.
You're good. You don't have to worry about.
As I tell Vern all the time, as long as I'm sitting next to him, I'm feeling good.
Thank you, Gary.
You got it.
All right, Gary Danielson from CBS Sports.